IQ is one of the biggest lies ever sold to ordinary people. And while most people are still worshipping test scores and academic labels, the ones who truly understand power have been using 5 brutal psychological weapons to stay in control of the game. Do not stay until the end of this video if you are not ready for the 5th truth to completely shatter the fragile version of yourself you have been protecting for years. There is a massive lie at the center of modern society. A centuries-old scam that the education system and the culture around it have quietly injected into our minds since childhood. They trained us to believe that intelligence is narrow, fixed, measurable, limited to grades, formulas, and cold little numbers on a sheet of paper. They handed us IQ tests, lifeless report cards, and rigid standards, then used them to judge the value of an entire human life. Have you ever stood in a room full of people and felt your chest tighten with shame? Have you ever silently labeled yourself slow, average, not enough, or just not built for greatness, simply because your brain did not store abstract numbers the way some so-called genius on television could? That insecurity does not just disappear. It roots itself deep in your mind. It makes you second-guess your decisions. It poisons your confidence. It steals opportunities from your life before you even dare to reach for them. And that is exactly why we need to destroy that lie today, right here, right now. Because the truth is a lot harsher than what school ever taught you, but it is also a lot more liberating. A high IQ does not guarantee a powerful life. Some of the people praised as naturally gifted, intellectually elite, or born brilliant are still completely lost in the real world. They get swallowed by emotion. They collapse under pressure. They fail in relationships. They sabotage their own future. They cannot even manage themselves. So let's get brutally honest. What is real intelligence? Not the fake version. Not the polished version society rewards. The real thing. Real intelligence is not a decorative trait you inherit. It is not a genetic crown handed out to a lucky few. It is an operating system. And that operating system can be trained, sharpened, upgraded, and rebuilt. In a world filled with chaos, manipulation, pressure, rejection, and uncertainty, real intelligence is emotional intelligence and practical intelligence fused together. It is your ability to stay calm when everyone else is spiraling. It is your ability to think clearly when everyone else is reacting blindly. It is your ability to manage your ego, read the room, adapt to reality, and respond with precision when life throws something brutal in your face. A truly intelligent person does not need to know everything, but they do know how to steer themselves through darkness. They know how to hold the wheel when the storm hits, and that is the kind of intelligence that changes lives. What I am about to share with you is not empty motivational fluff. This is not one more soft speech designed to make weak people feel temporarily inspired. We are going deeper than that. We are going to break down 5 core thinking habits, 5 hidden mental weapons that separate people who merely look smart from people who actually control the game. These are not mystical talents. They are trainable, learnable, repeatable. And if you are willing to hear something that goes directly against your instincts, this video might become the moment your life starts shifting, because the old version of you may not survive what comes next. Good. That version was never built to win anyway. By the end of this, you will see the outline of someone colder, sharper, and harder to manipulate. And that changes everything. Now that we have shattered the dead definition of intelligence, it is time to build the first gear of your new mental system. The first secret, and the line that separates a truly wise person from a child trapped inside an adult body, is this. Real intelligence begins with emotional control. Look around. How many highly educated people do you know who still destroy themselves the second emotion takes over? They say vicious things in anger. They smash relationships in one reckless moment. They ruin opportunities because they could not handle humiliation, pressure, envy, or ego bruises. Emotion is one of the sweetest and most dangerous poisons in human life. When you panic, when you rage, when you get carried away by excitement, your logical brain starts shutting down. That is not weakness. That is biology. And truly intelligent people understand this with painful clarity. They do not pretend emotions do not exist. They do not suppress them like cowards trying to look composed, because suppression only turns pain into a time bomb. Instead, They practice something far more powerful. They create distance between themselves and the emotional storm. The moment anger rises, they do not become anger. The moment fear hits, they do not let fear take the wheel. They step back internally. They observe themselves. They watch the reaction happening almost like a third person watching a scene unfold from above. They let the emotion move through the body. They name it. They feel it, but they do not obey it. That is where power lives, because every decision made at the peak of emotion is usually a delayed disaster. Every impulsive reaction feels satisfying in the moment and expensive later. The strongest people in the room are rarely the loudest. They are the ones who know how to pause. That tiny space between stimulus and response is where your real authority lives. That pause decides whether you become a slave to instinct or the architect of your own life. And most people never build that muscle. They react instantly. They defend themselves instantly. They explain instantly. They lash out instantly. Then they spend weeks cleaning up the damage. If that has ever been you, comment 1. But emotional control is only the first gear. The second one is even more painful, because it requires something most people would rather die than face. You have to become ruthless about admitting what you do not know. Have you noticed that the less someone knows, the more desperate they are to sound certain? Weak minds cling to scraps of information and use them like armor. They argue loudly. They protect their ego like it is sacred. They would rather look confident and stay ignorant than look humble and become better. That is how people stay trapped for years. The smartest minds, on the other hand, carry a different kind of pride, a colder kind. They are not obsessed with looking right. They are obsessed with getting closer to truth. And that means they can say the sentence, "Fragile people hate the most," "I don't know." Not as a performance, not as fake humility, but as a weapon. Because the moment you admit you do not know, you become teachable. You become dangerous in the best way. You stop wasting energy, protecting an illusion. You stop pretending. You lower the ego and open the door to real growth. People who rise fast in life are not always the most talented. A lot of the time, they are just the least attached to looking smart. They ask questions. They listen carefully. They steal lessons from people who already paid the price for that knowledge. They do not hide their blind spots. They expose them, fix them, and move on. That is real maturity. That is real power. So if you want to become harder to defeat, start here. Choose truth over ego. Choose learning over performance. Choose clarity over pride. Because the version of you that always needs to be right is the exact version that will keep you weak. Controlling your inner world is only the beginning. The next level is learning how to project that control into the outside world. And this is where the third secret appears like an invisible weapon. Intentional silence. The world is loud. Everybody wants to speak. Everybody wants to explain themselves, prove themselves, defend themselves, impress someone, win an argument, dominate a conversation. People are addicted to noise because noise makes them feel present. But high-level thinkers play a different game. They step back, they watch, they let the room reveal itself. Because every time you speak too quickly, you give something away. You reveal your thinking. You reveal your motives. You reveal your insecurities. You show people where your emotional weak spots are. And once people know your weak spots, they know how to move you. That is why silence is power. The quiet person is often the one holding the strongest position, because silence creates pressure. And most people cannot handle pressure without exposing themselves. When you stop rushing to fill the space, the other person usually starts talking more than they should. They overshare. They ramble. They contradict themselves. They reveal hidden motives. They show you who they are without realizing it. A truly intelligent person uses their eyes and ears far more than their mouth. They gather data constantly. They notice the hesitation before an answer, the slight tightening in the jaw, the change in breathing, the forced laugh, the look that flashes across someone's face for half a second before they cover it up. They are not trying to win pointless arguments. They are mapping human behavior. They are reading the board while everyone else is still trying to win one little move. And that is why, when the moment finally comes to speak, they do not need 100 words. One precise sentence is enough. One well-timed question is enough. One calm observation can flip the entire energy of a room. That is not cowardice. That is not passivity. That is strategic restraint. It is the discipline of someone who understands that power is not always loud. Sometimes power looks like a still face, a patient pause, and a mind that is 10 steps ahead. If you have spent too much of your life speaking too quickly, explaining too much, or trying to prove yourself to people who never earned access to your thoughts, let this be the moment that changes. You do not have to say everything. You do not have to reveal everything. And you definitely do not have to defend your worth in every room. Sometimes the smartest move is to say less and see more. That alone will make you harder to read, harder to manipulate, and a lot harder to control. That sharp stillness gives you armor. But armor alone is not enough, because sooner or later, life will bring you to the one test every human being faces: uncertainty. This is the fourth secret, and it is the one that saves people when their entire world collapses. Mental flexibility and anti-fragility. Most people were trained to believe life should move in a straight line. A leads to B, B leads to C. Study hard, work hard, follow the script, stay safe, stay predictable, stay inside the lines. But real life is not a straight line. Real life is a violent animal. It can throw a global crisis at you, a betrayal from someone you trusted, a financial collapse, a health scare, a loss you never saw coming, and the people who only know how to function inside stable conditions break the second reality, stops cooperating. They complain, they panic, they play victim, they collapse because the world refused to match the story in their head. But deeply intelligent people do something else. They adapt fast. They do not expect life to be fair. They do not waste precious energy asking, "Why is this happening to me?" They ask a harder and better question. What can I use here? What can this teach me? How do I turn this into leverage? That mindset changes everything. Because now pain is not just pain. It becomes information. Loss becomes training. Disruption becomes raw material. These people do not worship stability. They build systems strong enough to survive instability. They do not need life to stay comfortable in order to stay functional. They know how to rebuild. They know how to pivot. They know how to let go of an outdated identity fast. That last part matters more than most people realize. Because one of the dumbest things a person can do is cling to an old version of themselves just because it once worked. What helped you survive one chapter can destroy you in the next. What made you successful before can become the cage that keeps you small now. Smart people understand that evolution is brutal. Sometimes you have to tear down your own beliefs overnight. Sometimes you have to admit that your old strategy is dead. Sometimes you have to walk away from the familiar and rebuild from ashes. And that hurts. But it also sets you free. Weak people call that instability. Strong people call that transformation. If you are ready to stop whining about reality and start evolving with it, comment 1. Because the truth is this: adversity does not automatically destroy you. A lot of the time, it just exposes what was fragile all along. And once you see that, you can finally build something stronger. Now we come to the final piece. The most painful one, the most decisive one. Because none of the other traits matter much if you do not have this. The ability to delay gratification. This is the fifth secret. And it is the one behind every empire, every meaningful achievement, every powerful transformation you have ever admired. Modern life is waging war against your brain. Every day, it feeds you cheap dopamine in endless forms, mindless scrolling, instant entertainment, fast food pleasure, validation from strangers, short-term attention, short-term excitement, short-term comfort. Everything is built to make you want relief now, pleasure now, reward now, and that is exactly why so many people stay average forever. Because the brutal law of reality is simple. Anything with real value takes time. Real strength takes time. Real mastery takes time. Real wealth takes time. Real self-respect takes time. Real transformation asks for repetition, boredom, discomfort, loneliness, discipline, and a level of patience most people do not have. Truly, intelligent people understand time better than the crowd. They can see beyond today's craving. They can say no to the small reward because they are committed to the bigger one. They are willing to endure the dullness of repetition. They are willing to train when nobody is watching. They are willing to build slowly while others chase shortcuts. They understand that the distance between a dreamer and a builder is not IQ, it is pain tolerance. It is the ability to stay loyal to a meaningful future when the present moment offers easier pleasures. That is what discipline really is. Not motivation, not hype, not intensity for 3 days. Discipline is the quiet decision to keep going when nothing feels exciting. It is the willingness to suffer usefully. It is the refusal to trade your future for temporary comfort. When other people are sleeping on their own potential, disciplined people are sharpening theirs. When others are drowning in distraction, disciplined people are building. When others want applause, disciplined people want progress. And over time, that gap becomes massive. This is why weak people often misunderstand strong people. They think they are cold, too intense, too distant, too obsessed. But what they are really seeing is someone who stopped bowing to every impulse. Someone who no longer needs immediate pleasure to feel alive. Someone who has learned how to protect their energy from a culture designed to make them soft. We have now walked through the entire architecture of real intelligence. Not the fake version sold in classrooms, the real version. The version that helps you survive betrayal, chaos, swimming to temptation, humiliation, and uncertainty without losing yourself. Control your emotions. Crush your ego. Use silence like a weapon. Adapt faster than reality can break you. And train yourself to resist cheap pleasure long enough to earn something greater. That is the path. And yes, it is brutal. It attacks laziness. It exposes weakness. It demands honesty. It strips away excuses. But that is exactly why it works. So, now the question is not whether this truth is harsh. The question is whether you are done being ruled by weak instincts, fake standards, and a society that keeps rewarding surface-level performance while people quietly rot inside. Do you want to keep living as someone easily manipulated by emotion, ego, noise, fear, and instant gratification? Or do you want to forge a different mind? A stronger one, a calmer one, a more dangerous one, a mind that belongs to you? The choice is yours. Right now. Thank you for staying with me through this, and I hope you carry these lessons into the next version of your life. Let's close this with one truth you cannot afford to avoid. The journey toward real intelligence is not about stuffing your head with more academic knowledge, more certificates, or more polished labels. It is a full reconstruction of your inner operating system, a complete internal rebuild. True intelligence begins when you stop letting anger, panic, excitement, and wounded pride hijack your decisions. It deepens when you become humble enough to say, "I don't know," and hungry enough to learn without protecting your ego. It sharpens when you master silence, observe carefully, and stop competing with noisy people for attention. It hardens when life hits you, and you choose adaptation over self-pity. And it reaches another level when you stop feeding your brain constant cheap pleasure and start training yourself to endure discomfort in service of something meaningful. That is the real measurement, not IQ, not image, not credentials. Real intelligence is measured by your ability to overcome the weakest instincts inside you. And once you understand that, the biggest enemy in your life becomes impossible to ignore. It is not bad luck. It is not a lack of talent. It is not even the people trying to control you. It is your own addiction to comfort, your own ego, your own refusal to pause, reflect, adapt, and endure. That is where the war is. That is where the battle has always been. So here is how you begin making this real. The next time something triggers you, do not answer immediately. Do not react immediately. Take a breath. Step back for 5 seconds. Let the emotional wave pass through before your logical mind comes back online. This week, when someone brings up something you do not fully understand, stop pretending. Say it plainly. "I'm not fully familiar with that. Can you explain it?" And feel what happens when the ego loosens its grip. In conversations, try this rule. Listen 80% of the time. Speak 20%. Watch body language. Watch timing. Watch tone. Let silence do some of the work. And start breaking your addiction to dopamine. Pick one block of time each day, even just 1 hour before sleep, where you stay away from social media and short-form distraction completely. Use that time to read, write, reflect, or simply sit with your own thoughts. Train your brain to stop running from stillness. That is how focus comes back. That is how depth comes back. That is how personal power comes back. If you are ready to step into a more disciplined version of yourself, comment 1. And before you go, answer this honestly. Out of these 5 mental weapons, emotional control, ego reduction, silence, anti-fragility, and delayed gratification, which one are you weakest at right now? Which one do you need to train first? Leave your answer in the comments. Your perspective might become the thing that helps someone else wake up too. And if this video hit something real in you, subscribe and turn on the bell, because there is a lot more to uncover.